Harnessing indigenous knowledge for youth empowerment.
Stems from Africans. So one of the most clear examples of how music can expand and help people out of poverty, especially indigenous music. One of my favorite artists who's from Canada. His name's Abel Tesfaye. The Weeknd. He's one of the biggest musicians in the world. He actually is indigenously from Ethiopia, and within his music, whenever you listen to his music, he infuses Ethiopian sounds, which he got from his mother and his grandmother, into his music, which he had, and in a more modern sense. And if it wasn't for him doing that, I wouldn't know that he's even from Ethiopia to begin with. Inspiration from acts like him, and say to myself, where there's a lot of poverty and unemployment, how can we help people use their talents to get them out of the situation they find themselves in? And I'm in the business of doing that. I want to find what people do at the grassroots level and give a voice to the voiceless in that sense. Put them behind a microphone or put them on a drum set and just if there's a choir that's unknown, at least give them a platform to get their music out there, a platform that they otherwise wouldn't have 20, even 10 years ago. So I take inspiration from artists like him, and also artists like Ladysmith, groups like Ladysmith, Black Mamba as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Yes.
That's actually what we are thinking of. In Uganda, we bought drums for people who wanted to do the same thing that you are doing now. And we are hoping that we're going to get more money to help them to create like a cultural troupe, and so it means Professor Moyo, that's another area of intervention that we can look at once we get, because I included creative sector in our next proposal. So that would be great. In Uganda, what we're planning is to make sure that people sing those indigenous songs and then we put them on Spotify. We support them with digital support, and then they'll be streaming, and then they'll be making money. So that's great. Thank you very much. We missed some aspect of it. Jabulila, I want you to repeat what Mama said earlier on. I just started recording. Nobody reminded me, and Natasha didn't remind me. So I apologize for that. So, so why is indigenous knowledge important to livelihood? Just repeat what you said before, but because we're not recording before.
I mentioned that indigenous knowledge systems are important because they are part of us. It's the way we live, and that it's also important for our livelihoods because that's how we, make money. But also, it's not about money. By the way, it's not about maximizing.
Nothing is bad about money. Nothing is bad about making money.
It's about community empowerment. It's about ensuring environmental sustainability. And it's about, continuation of our culture, sustainability of our culture. Yes. So the next question Prof had asked was, how is it that Uma is using IKS, her enterprises? So she's going to share that and then I'll translate. So
bas lesintu sisebenzisa la thina kule ndawo yethu yaseNgolweni siyalima ummbila silime amakabishi silima umadumbe khona abanye abalisebenzisa ekwenzeni mhlambe umthungo abathunga impahla zesintu abanye benza ubuhlalu abanye bafuya inkukhu zesintu njengami nginey'nkukhu zesintu bayazidinga kakhulu abantu and bayancoma ukuthi inyama yazo imnandi. Asifuni ukuthi lolu hlobo lwey'nkukhu noma lolu hlobo lwezinto esizenzayo zesintu ziphele ukuze iy'ngane noma isizukulwane sethu sihlale siqhubeka nabo ukuze sikwazi ukuphila.
Ngiyabonga, Ma. So Uma is mentioning that matting, weaving grass mats. There are also, yes, I mentioned people that are involved in beadwork. There are also people who are involved in keeping pigs, keeping cows. Yeah, so there are several. There's also someone who's responsible for making drums, music drums. We have someone who does that. We also have people who make brooms. Yeah, thank you. Brass brooms.
So I'm particularly interested in this drum and, indigenous health and all of that. So, just hopefully we'll get money. I know Professor Moyo is also thinking the way I'm thinking, that maybe you go to Pretoria, you have like a cultural troupe that when people come to do this government program, and then you are known nationally or even internationally for doing that. So let's hope that we'll get money. Dr. Letiwe Zondo, I will start from you. What are the challenges facing indigenous businesses among the Abattoir community? What are the challenges they are faced with?
Thanks for that question. There is a lot of problems these people have mentioned when we had workshops with them. But the biggest one is the issue of theft. As the other child on the other side said, there is 70% unemployment with the youth. So they end up not knowing what to do because they are hungry, then they start thieving. That's the big problem. Like, for instance, one woman who was working with us said they stole the whole kraal of sheep, about 70 sheep. They just took them out. And they use a lot of other crafty ways of stealing. So what we think of now is to create a very strong security around it. But in each case, Ubuntu doesn't allow us to do that, in as much as you can't be having something when your neighbor is hungry. So if this thing of creating ventures can be multiplied and everybody has something to do, that can also solve the problem of others thinking of thieving. Just because there's this magnetism in doing ventures. Like you doing you have cattle and you milking cows, you selling to the people. They want the skin of your cattle so that they build drums. So that magnetism can also make sure that we don't have people who are just loitering, who have nothing to do, and then they start stealing. So we're thinking of having a conglomeration of these small projects so that everybody will be busy with something.
Okay. Well, Sipamandla, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, what are the challenges facing indigenous businesses?
I'm here.
What are the challenges facing indigenous businesses?
So the one, yes, she just mentioned, Dr. Zondo just mentioned it, theft. That's one. The other one for us, we want to modernize our product. So when it comes to the medicine, we want to bottle it in bottles that are appealing to people. We don't want to use bottles in the old sense where, people used to use 2-liter bottles, Coke bottles, recycled bottles, things like that. We want to modernize, want to use glass bottles, want to have proper branding on our products, and the methods that we distribute. We want to access to markets. So want to put it in shopping centers. Right now, sometimes we put them on the side of the road. We get into these cooperatives where we can use stalls and things like that, but want to sort of formalize it so that it can appeal to the mass market. That is one of the main challenges. And one more, I'll say, the regulatory framework, especially with terms of cannabis. is very restrictive in terms of the money that we need to pay in order to be registered, and in order for us to operate legally. It's very high money, and then that makes it inaccessible for people like us who are still trying to formalize our ventures.
Great. My friend?
Yes, in my perspective within the music industry, within South Africa, a big issue I find is there's a knowledge gap between what people know about making music, and there's a need to demystify that, because when people see an incredible act such as Tyler, who's from South Africa in America, they might think that it just happens by magic, but actually there are role players behind her ensuring that she can become a global phenomenon. And there's jobs which can be made within those places, such as mixer engineer, master engineer, writers, composers, lyricists, people behind the scenes who don't necessarily get the same amounts of praise, but are definitely as pivotal as she is to making what she does happen. So there's a need to demystify what exactly those positions entail, and then to convey that knowledge to people, to give them a better shot at becoming well-known role players within the music industry, not just singers, but also maybe composers, songwriters, and things such as that. So I think there's a need to just provide that knowledge to people, people who otherwise wouldn't be able to find it in the past.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Gogo. Is it Gogo is Mama? Mma, I
Yes.
mean, Gogo for Mma. So what are the challenges? What are the challenges you are facing in applying indigenous business, in scaling up your business, and what are the challenges facing you?
Mhlambe iy'nkinga engibhekana nazo enginazo njengamanje, nginey'nkukhu eziyimikhakha emithathu. Khona iy'nkukhu zenyama ezimhlophe, khona ezamaqanda, ezikhiqiza amaqanda, khona iy'nkukhu zesintu. Inkinga enginayo, anginayo indlu eyanele yokuzifaka. Nanokudla kuyabiza. Ngibuye futhi ngibe umlimi, ngiyalima la engadini, ngilimile ngenhla kunensimu enommbila omningi impela. Inkinga nje ukuthi ngifuna ukwandisa ukuze ungathi mhlampe insimu iba inkulu. Inkinga umhlaba asinawo indawo yokulima, ney'mali mhlampe ukuthi uma soyitholile leyo ndawo uzoyibiya kanjani. Mhlampe amakhosi uma engase angenelele kulolu hlelo, abe yingxenye yalo, athole ukululekeka ukuthi abantu bawudinga kanjani umhlaba ukuze bakwazi ukuwusebenzisa, ngoba iwo esibona sengathi uzosinikeza inqubekela phambili empilweni.
So I'll translate what Uma has said. The first challenge that she is facing is space. So she keeps 3 different types of chickens, and she doesn't have enough room space to keep all of them. And also the challenge is feed. Chicken feed is a bit pricey for her. And then, as we mentioned earlier on, that she's also a farmer. So she does have issues in terms of access to land, where she wants to grow, expand her farm, but she doesn't have access to the land because of local politics in terms of land access. So, and then also when she does get the land, another challenge would be fencing off the land to secure her produce. And then, in addition to what Uma has said, there are other issues that have come to the fore from the other Indigenous entrepreneurs in the area, and one of them is limited access to finance to upscale their enterprises. So they don't have access to credit or to grants. And then, of course, I mentioned the local land politics. That is also an issue. And then sometimes there is an issue in terms of unreliable water supply in the area. So, they're forced to rely on the rain for irrigation. And then sometimes the other issue is the customers themselves. There's this informal credit system that they use. Sometimes people don't pay on time or they don't pay at all. So that's not another issue that they have. And then the other issue is market access. So they are limited in terms of market access. They used to, in the past, sell their products at what we used to call grant collection points, Easy Kungo, but they've since closed. So there is that issue where their market is very narrow. And then the other issue that has been mentioned is poor generational transfer of the knowledge, where the younger ones, are either lazy to learn, or they look down on Indigenous knowledge systems. So we also have that issue. And then sometimes the challenge, especially for women, is time, because there are so many other responsibilities. So there is domestic responsibilities, there's productive responsibilities. So, they then end up with limited time to engage in their Indigenous enterprises. So yes, so those were the main challenges that were voiced by entrepreneurs in this area. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're getting to the end now. So what are the kind of support that Indigenous businesses need to expand? So because the whole idea of our founder, which we subscribe to, is job creation for the youth, 70% of women, 30% of men. So what are the kind of support that is needed across board to be able to scale up? That, I mean, if money is not your problem, what do you need to expand to address your problem? Should we start from Dr. Letiwe? Are you there?
Yes.
Yes. So what are the kind of support that they need?
Yes.
Make
yes,
it
Prof,
brief, because we need to finish quickly. Yeah.
Okay. The kind of support I think we can source out is to educate people, because what is a challenge right now is to communicate. Like those kids on the other side did mention, to communicate your product. Because what we discovered when we had the workshop with Professor Moyo and Dr. Jabulile in Bergville was that they do their product and then they don't know where to sell the product. So which means the day they close down the places where they used to sell their products, where the older people go and get their pension fund, that was a rendezvous for these people to meet and sell and exchange things. So now that has been closed, which means it's policed. It's not easy to take it back. It was part of the policy that changed the landscape in South Africa. So which means we need to sort of like sit down and plan as to how can we create those networks and those nodal points where they can meet and sell their products.
Okay.
That's
so
the thing that I saw that it's
marketing opportunity. Yes. Dr. Jabulile, what are the support needed? I think you've mentioned some of them, like capital and all of that, right?
Yes.
Ngicabanga ukuthi mhlawumbe mangase ngilekeleleke ekuthini kwande indlu engisebenzela kuyona ithanda ukuba inkulu impela, nanokuthi mhlawumbe ngithole ukulekeleleka ekudleni kwey'nkukhu, ngikwazi ukuthi ngizikhulise zibe zininganyana, nokudla-ke kube khona. Bese kuba ukuthi mhlawumbe insimi yami leyo ekhona-ke ngiyisebenzisayo manje, nayo ibiyeke ngendlela ukuthi kungangeni imfuyo ezodla lokho engikulimile. Mhlawumbe uma ngabe indlela kuthiwa ikhona, mhlawumbe-ke thole noma iplazi-ke sithole noma iplazi-ke sengingamema nabanye omama mhlampe ngisigqugquzele nentsha ngoba ikhona intsha eshisekelayo ukusebenza. Inkinga umhlaba awukho, kodwa uma kungabe sekutholakala noma iplazi, ngicabanga ukuthi ikhona into engenzeka. Baningi abantu abangakwazi ukuthola amathuba emisebenzi.
So I will translate. So for Uma specifically, she needs a bigger space. We're currently in her space. There are chickens all over here. So she needs a bigger space to upscale chicken business. And then in terms of agriculture, she needs fencing. But more than that, she needs access to bigger pieces of land so that she can work with other women and youth who are interested in agriculture. There are quite a few young people here who are also farmers who we have communicated with, who also, are struggling with the same thing, access to land. So that's another thing. And then in addition to what Uma has said, so it is, of course, I'll go back to, funding. There is issues of funding. There is also a need for a training, for like training centers for the youth. So there is a need for training. So it's funding, it's training, it's market access. So perhaps, the building of, an area where women can trade and the youth can trade with others. So that's also something that we need to look into.
Thank you so much. So let me just respond to this issue of marketing. We invited a guest speaker yesterday to our class. I teach a course called Comparative Indigenous Knowledge and Entrepreneurship. So she's based in Toronto. She makes cosmetics, soap and all of that. And she told us that she started her marketing on Instagram, that she would dance, she would do all of this, and now she has a lot of customers. So I don't know whether young people in particular, whether you think of using social media to market your product. So I think that could be an avenue, but of course, this also requires infrastructural support to make it happen. So my last question will be to Oga Patapata, Professor Moyo, and to all of you, by the way. So what are the other areas of research to be conducted on indigenous knowledge among the various indigenous groups that you are working with? What are the missing gaps? I know you've done some. What other areas of research do you think we need to engage in? Professor Moyo.
Many thanks for that question. Yes, in fact, you have read my mind. There are many areas of research which are as wide as the ocean. For the present purposes, really, I'm going to touch one. Indigenous knowledge systems and climate change. That one is screaming to be researched. That's the first one. The second one is the issue of indigenous knowledge systems and health. That issue, indigenous knowledge systems and health. You would know, for instance, in the abattoir, Dr. Zondi would tell you that there is indigenous health, midwifery, and so on and so forth, but little is known. So if we could venture into that, as a matter of fact, last year, we did speak to people that are involved in that kind of thing. So there is more research that needs to go into that, particularly the synergistic relationship between indigenous knowledge systems in that area and what is called modern science. So we need to do more research on that one. Many thanks. And then the third one is for us to understand indigenous knowledge systems and the issues of governance. We need to dig deeper into that. And then the fourth one is the issue of indigenous knowledge systems and food. The issue of food, indigenous knowledge systems and food. You can look at extraction of food. You can look at preservation of food, and so on and so forth. The list is endless, like I indicated. You see, what can be researched in South Africa specifically on indigenous knowledge systems is as wide as the ocean. I know I have limitations of time. But yeah, we can list as many as, like I indicated, you couldn't see on the other end of the ocean. That's how much we have in terms of what we need to research, Prof. Lauren Topa.
Thank you very much. Dr. Letiwe Zondo. Does that cover all you want to say, or you have something?
Another thing is to things like, for instance, when it comes to food that people can tap into, but the modern life has sidelined those food products. Like, for instance, we find out that the food that we eat now can cause people to die earlier, and die younger. But with the food that is out there behind the scenes now, which is indigenous food, it has got a lot of longevity that it can add to a human being. So I think we need to sort of like go back to the seeds that were thrown into the dustbin and revive them and make them fashionable, so that, like, for instance, Prof spoke about taking it to the streams to sort of like market it, sing about it, find other ways of making it available to the eyes of the people, take it to the streets of the network, so that people can see that those foods are good. Because if they are not being preached as to how good they can be, they are forgotten. Other thing.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mismela Adesipamandla Dando and his, what's your name? Sorry, I'm calling you my friend. I'm not mentioning your name.
Zama. My name's Zama.
Zama. I thought it's a woman who bears Zama. My wife, my friend's wife is Zama. It's a unisex.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No. Most times you find women have the same name as me, but yeah, it's
Okay.
unisex in a sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So yes, the two professors they've talked. This is another professor. I'm sure all of you here will be professors one day.
Just to add on to what has been said by colleagues, I also want to emphasize that we need to look at indigenous knowledge systems in relation to local governance. I think, yeah, we need to focus on that, and to look at indigenous knowledge systems in relation to the circular economy and for climate resilience. So those are, areas that are, of interest to me, that, I'm considering exploring further. Thanks, Prof.
Thank you. Zama and Sipamandla?
From a personal standpoint, I will say that the indigenous knowledge systems we need research on is the ones that relate to things about the moral landscape, sort of things that govern person-to-person behavior, right and wrong, how we treat each other as human beings. I think a lot of us take our moral decisions based on things like the Bible, or things like institutions, Western institutions, things which we've learned from other people who came here. We need to create our own, and we need to formalize it and write it down and find out how people who look like us years back used to survive with each other in their communities. Because I think some of the moral degradation amongst the youth is simply because of not having something to hold on to.
Fantastic. I just love that. Our first webinar was on restoring values, and I agree with you. It just, even though they are there in the Bible, people don't follow it, because we are contending against a lot of forces, materialism, killing people, those nonsense. So thank you so much. That's a real research area that we need to focus on. What are the norms, the social mores that kept us together before? How do we punish misbehavior? How do we hold people accountable before? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Zama?
From my point of view, another area of research that we can use indigenous knowledge for is how we can also, in times of just psychological upheaval, because in the West, a lot of the time, if someone's going through something mentally, they would be referred to a psychologist or a therapist of some sort. But I feel like not enough people pay credence to indigenous values and how you can use those to deal with psychological problems that you may or may not be going through. So just taking how people from the indigenous landscape deal with those issues, and then trying to use that in a modern sense in the Western world even, I think that can be beneficial, just as indigenous medication, which you intake, can be beneficial. The mind can also benefit from the way we deal with issues in the indigenous sense.
Thank you very much. This is why co-creation is the best. You will never think about some things, but when you do co-creation with people, you gain a lot of insight. So thank you so much. It's been a great time talking to you. We will send it to people who will help us edit, and then we will share it with you before we share it to the world. So thank you so much, Dr. Jabulile, Professor Moyo, Dr. Letiwe, and Mama, I forgot her mama's name, Sipamanda and Zama and Natasha, who is helping us to take note. Thank you so much. We'll get back to you. Pray for us. We are looking for money to just do all of this. It's my waking thought and sleeping thought, so that we can expand, reduce unemployment in Africa. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Before you go, we just wanted to quickly show you around so that you know that you need to find money.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to be visible. So this is the room that we're in currently. Okay. There are some chickens that side, and then if you turn, there are some chickens that are growing here. Okay. And then there are other chickens in the other room. Okay, so this is where, yes, so there are 2 rooms, but there's still not enough space for the the amounts of chicken she has. And then obviously, because we're indoors, you won't see everything, but there's agriculture outside.
Okay. Thank you so much. I have to join another meeting now. Looking forward to further engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah.